Welcome to my webinar. So you want to be a screenwriter, now what? Tips, tricks, and disciplines to help you pursue a screenwriting career in Hollywood. Part 1 is the art and craft of screenwriting. Learn it, respect it, master it. A few quotes. Writing's the only profession where no one considers you ridiculous if you earn no money. As an artist, I feel that we must try many things, but above all, we must dare to fail. Absolutely. And it is no small feat to get a movie made on any subject, on any size screen. Now we talk about the overnight success in Hollywood. You know, they say it takes 10 years, but if you step through that door on your journey, you're going to have to commit 100%. And one script's not going to do it. You know, you need multiple solid projects in the marketplace at all times to compete. That means maybe 3 or 4 screenplays that are your best scripts, and it's going to take time to reach that level. You know, it took me 6 years after film school to score my first professional job. And the most important thing, you must have patience and continue to learn. You know, that's vital to your career. It's also very important to master screenplay format. You know, you have to write with imagery. You know, don't tell us, show us. It has to be vibrant writing, action, you know, and the format starts with your cover page. It's true because producers can see that you're an amateur by the first few pages and the first few typos and format mistakes. I mean, it's what really separates the professional from the amateur. And there's no reason why you can't master screenplay format. An excellent book is from David Trottier called The Screenwriter's Bible. And that's a book that you should have next to your computer if you have any questions about format. And format's going to give you away as an amateur, truly. And many people think that they'll look through the problems to see the genius idea that I've written. No, they won't. They'll see that you didn't take the time as a professional to learn format properly. So why would you take time as a professional if they hired you to really look at all the details? So master format. Okay, what you want to avoid is overwriting and micromanaging the script. You have to let go. This is an example of not good screenwriting. Interior living room, midnight. Okay, interior house, living room, midnight. Jack walks. I've underlined everything here that's a problem. Walks. Does he saunter? Does he creep? Give us something else that's not as boring as walks. Into the living room. Living room is redundant. We know it's a living room from the location header. You don't have to write it again. It's decorated with hardwood furniture and a crystal chandelier. It's not important unless the diamonds in the chandelier he's trying to steal. Don't describe the wallpaper or the carpet. He looks around. Again, looks is boring. He eyes the room, you know, something. He thinks for a beat and remembers his mission. How do you show him remembering his mission? Does he pull out his phone and see something? You have to do it visually. You can't write what's in characters' heads. Jack hears a noise from the den. He turns. I wouldn't write turns. Reaches into his coat and pulls out his gun. Just say he pulls his gun and moves. How about dashes, something better, to the doorway to see a masked man at the open safe. Jack yelling. Okay, we know it because there's exclamation points, which, you know, freeze, don't move. You don't have to capitalize words in dialogue. It's distracting. And so this is an example. You're going to have 130-page script if you write like this. Don't micromanage your screenplay. Now here are a few suggested books for your library on your screenwriting journey. The Screenwriter's Bible by David Trottier, as I mentioned before, is excellent about formatting. Also, The Hollywood Standard, great book about formatting. Story by Robert McKee, fantastic book. The Writer's Journey by Vogler follows the hero's journey. Screenwriter's Workbook by Sid Field, an oldie but a goodie. Anatomy of Story by John Truby, fantastic book, a must read, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield is a small book. You can just flip to any page and have a great little quote about writing or the journey. The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron is fantastic. Stephen King's On Writing. The Kid Stays in the Picture, of course, by Robert Evans. Which Lie Did I Tell, William Goldman. And also Tales from the Script. Now, I can't stress enough the importance of your screenwriting workspace. You know, you have to protect your precious screenwriting time from interruption and distraction, because without time to write, writers are finished, you know. And you'll never finish anything if you don't turn out those pages every day with a writing schedule. So avoid clutter because it breeds distraction. Keep your desk clean. Sometimes, you know, I would go to a coffee shop to write. The noise helped me. I don't do that anymore. Don't answer the phone and get off the internet completely. And time's a screenwriter's greatest asset or worst enemy, and it truly is how you use your time. And you're going to have to train yourself now to finish a script under a self-imposed deadline, because when you do start working professionally, let's say on assignment, you're going to have to meet those deadlines, and you don't want to be shocked with that. It's also important to find your own unique style and your voice as a writer, and that's only going to be discovered through experience, meaning writing a lot of screenplays over a period of time. How do you like to open a scene? How do you like to write dialogue? What characters do you gravitate toward? These things only happen over time. You can be influenced, but don't copy other writers. Don't emulate them or try to duplicate them. And you stand out by creating your own unique voice and your style, and know your writing abilities. Are you able to write a screenplay in a month? Can you sit down and write for 6 to 8 hours a day? Because you're going to need to when you start working professionally. These are the things that you find out only through experience over time writing. Eventually, you're going to be asked, maybe by agents or managers, what's your genre? What kind of movies do you write? Now, if you say, well, I have a Western, a comedy, an action, a thing, you're going to be too scattered all over the place. They want to hear one genre. Now, several movies have subgenres, action, adventure, but that's okay. They just want to hear one genre to try to pigeonhole you, which is okay, because the first spec you sell is probably going to be the genre that you're going to be working in. Let's say you sell a comedy spec, they're not going to send you out for an action movie or a drama. You're going to be a comedy writer. So my suggestion is to find a genre that you're passionate about and focus on that and master it. Let that drive your desire and help establish your career. Now, before you start your screenplay, you're going to need a roadmap, right? You're going to need something, a one-pager, a beat sheet, a treatment, or a step outline. The terms are fast and loose, but they're all the same thing. You need to start with something that you've created before you start pages. Now, on my assignment jobs with a producer, producers never allow me to go to pages until we work the story out. And sometimes it's, down to very small details, and other times not. There's the one pager, which is basically a one-page synopsis, of the whole movie. It leaves a lot out, obviously. Then there's the beat sheet, which could be maybe 15 pages. There's all the major beats in a sentence. Then you follow that with the treatment, which is more of a crafted story. You're reading actually the story of the movie, and that can be up to basically 20 pages. My last screenwriting assignment, I had it's 5 or 10 page outline, which had little paragraphs basically in every act. And then there's the more extensive step outline, which can be up to 30 pages. Again, goes scene by scene, which could be adding bits of dialogue and things like that. But whatever you want to call your pre-draft, you do need, in my opinion, a roadmap before you start the screenplay, because it's a lot easier to work out the problems there than actually writing the script and finding out you have to do a major rewrite. Now, if you don't understand this yet, you will. That screenwriting is all about the rewrite process. You have to learn it, live it, and love it. And don't rewrite as you write, because it'll be an endless wheel and you'll never get anything done. Don't fall in love with your words. Detach. And the execution is everything. Ideas are everywhere, so a good idea poorly executed will not help you. So you have to detach from the screenplay, be objective as much as you can, accept that a script is a blueprint for a movie. It's not a movie yet. Do not rewrite as you write, as I mentioned, and put ego aside when you're doing your rewrites. When you receive the criticism, hopefully it's constructive. Try to step outside and say, you know what, you're right, that scene needs to be cut, or that character needs to be fixed, because it's going to make a better screenplay. It's all about a better screenplay, the best script you can write. And execute the rewrite notes quickly, because you're going to train yourself now for the time when you do have assignment jobs, trust me, and you're given 2 or 3 weeks to do the rewrite, or maybe 8 weeks. You have to be able to do that. And this is going to build your reputation as a team player and collaborator, and somebody who goes above and beyond the call of duty to get the job done, and that's going to get you hired again and start building those important relationships. So let's talk about screenplay dialogue, right? Don't overwrite your dialogue. I mean, I read scripts and I just see like a page length speech. It's most dialogue is 3 lines at best. Limit your parentheticals. You don't want to direct on the page, and it's annoying, not only to the reader but also to the actor. Less is more. So when you go through your dialogue and you say, "Well, I've cut it," no, you cut more as much as possible. Avoid talking heads where characters just sit and talk. It's not interesting. A director I worked with once would always tell me, "Give me something to shoot." He needed something to film, not just 2 people talking at a table. Avoid the cliches. It just perpetuates them. You're writing only things that you've learned in other movies rather than from real life or your own, point of view. Avoid exclamation points. Disaster. You're directing again on the page, trying to tell the actor that you have to say this line this way. If the scene is properly written, they will understand. Avoid using adverbs. It's going to kill your writing. And watch out for exposition, where you're telling us things. Or 2 characters are in a scene and one is talking about something that we've already seen in the film. It's not good screenwriting. It makes for boring cinema. And don't forget about subtext, what's beneath the lines, because characters don't always say what they mean, nor should they. And it makes for a more nuanced performance when there's a lot of subtext. And so dialogue is something that you'll have to work on if it's not your strong suit, but it's something that's extremely important in the screenwriting process. Now, another important aspect of screenwriting is doing your research. There's 3 types of research: personal experience, imagination, and reality. And you have to set aside the time to do your research, but don't avoid the writing. When I was writing a submarine action film, I did 3 months of research on submarines. I went on a submarine, I read books, I watched movies, I totally immersed myself in everything about a submarine and how it would feel to be on a sub underneath the surface of the ocean. And, you need to keep a research notebook, to write your notes. And real world research makes your script authentic. One time on another film that I was writing, my writing partner and I got to go on a supertanker, which we've never been. All the way, they took us on the tour of the entire ship, and it made the screenplay more realistic because we knew what we were writing about because we've experienced it. And real world experience makes your writing come alive and it makes it authentic. So living outside of your comfort zone, doing some of this research actually makes life fun, like being on a submarine. Now, should you consider the budget when writing your specs? I think so, because there are fewer higher budgeted films being made by the studios now in Hollywood. And lower budget movies, and let's say an indie film, has a better chance, better odds of being produced, and also TV movies are cheaper. I mean, cheaper than, $100 million feature. So there's many budget considerations. The talent, are you having A-list talent? Or, who's in your film? What are they going to cost? The location, are you filming in exotic locales that's, with permits and various things that are going to cost a lot of money? Are you shooting at night? What about the weather? Are you shooting in the snow or the rain? Children, actors, or accommodation, they only have a very specific work schedule. Animals. One time I worked on a movie that had 30 venomous snakes. Of course that added to the budget. Snake wrangler, the whole deal. How many speaking parts in your film? How many extras? What kind of action is it? And in the time period. I wrote a World War II coming-of-age movie, and it was more expensive because all the cars had to be vintage, and so you have to think about these things when you're writing your spec. Because it's a lot harder to rewrite a $200 million budget and transform it down to, let's say, a $2 million budget. Okay, you finished your screenplay, you typed fade out the end, now what? Do not give this script to anyone to read. You need to put it away for a few days or maybe a week to get some distance, but it's a very vulnerable period. It should just be between you and your screenplay. You don't want any notes from anyone, any opinions at this point. You have to have an opinion, first and foremost. So then you pull out the script from the drawer and read it with objectivity. Trust your first instincts. Make notes everywhere. Your first thought, put it down. Make the notes and consider the new changes and then jump right in for a fresh rewrite while the ideas are, fresh. You don't want it to sit for a month after you read it and dust starts to collect, And then repeat the steps 1 through 4 again after you finish. Now it's feedback time. You give it to your trusted writer friends or you hire a screenplay consultant. This is when you get the real feedback and the criticism you need. Now you relax. Everyone's busy, especially when people are doing you a favor to read your script. Everyone has a job, everyone's doing a lot of things, so you're going to have to focus your attention on another script or some other creative endeavor while you're waiting for feedback. Now use the waiting time wisely, do a new project, create a log line, something. Don't just sit there and wait because it's going to tear up your creative sensibilities. Now when the feedback comes back, consider the notes and use the ones you agree with and discard the others. If you don't agree with a certain note, you say, okay, but try to be objective. And then know when you're written out and you're confident with the material. And that only then is when you can unleash it upon Hollywood and enjoy the ride. But it's a good place to be when you finally are completely confident in your screenplay and you say, I cannot write anymore. I'm going to have someone option it or buy it to give me the changes. And it's a really good place to be. So then how do you deal with script notes, criticism? You have to be the ultimate team player and collaborator. This is when you're working professionally as a screenwriter. You want to facilitate the changes through the development process, and the ultimate end goal is to have the movie produced. Your job is to help the director do his or her job, which is direct the film. So do not live or die by anyone's notes. No job is worth losing because you don't want to make changes in dialogue, or you can't be difficult. Don't bristle or fight every change. This is something you need to detach, as I've said earlier, detach from the work. And if you defend the work, which is okay, you have to pick your battles wisely. I've done this many times. When I thought a producer was changing things too much, I said, hey, if we change that, and I had serious, concrete examples to back up my defense. And you can't do it for every fight, but you pick your battles wisely. And when I did this one particular discussion with the producer, at the end there was a long pause, and the producer said, you know what? You're right, we'll keep it. I was like, oh my God, I won that battle. But I wasn't about to do another and another and another, because then it starts being like, wow, you're a problem. Detach from the material, as I said, and the outcome. This is extremely important over the long haul of a screenwriting career, because there are going to be changes. It's a collaborative business, and it is a business, so never forget that. And don't allow your ego and emotion into the entire screenwriting process. So your detachment is going to help you with that. And, promptly execute the notes and changes, as I've mentioned before, with your own specs, but also it's vital when you're under contract and you have a deadline and you're getting paid. You must execute the notes. Now, old specs never die. They just become doorstops, kindling for a fireplace in a producer's aspen cabin, or great writing samples to help you get assignment jobs. I hope you pick number 3. Absolutely true. Even if you don't sell one of your specs and it's an excellent writing sample, you can always use it when someone says, hey, do you have a script that's an action movie? You say, yes, I do, here. So old specs never die, as long as they're very solid and they're ready to always be read from someone, and they'll best represent you. So make sure your specs are ready to go always.